The UFC and MMA in general needs Tom Aspinall to defeat Curtis Blaydes at UFC 304, and that's because the heavyweight division is in a total mess right now, and Tom Aspinall is the only star that really exists outside of Jon Jones. And since we have absolutely no idea what Jon Jones is going to do, win or lose against Stipe, that pretty much leaves Tom there as the only person to really carry the weight of the entire division. So if Tom was to lose this fight, I believe that would be a complete and utter disaster for the UFC and for interest in the heavyweights. So that's what I want to talk about in this video, but before I get to all that, if you find you enjoy the video, please give it a like. Also, if you're not subscribed yet, please do that as well. I would love to have you here for future content. I'm getting very close to my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and at that point, I'll be doing a giveaway, so if you want to participate in that, check it out down in the description. Also, all the topics of the video will be timestamped down in the progress bar. And if you want to see something pretty hilarious that happened while I was making this video, I'm going to put it in the last segment, so be sure to check that out. So let's talk about the heavyweight division in general and the matchup coming up between Curtis Blaydes and Tom Aspinall in just a few weeks. Regarding the division in general, it's just one that's incredibly weak when it comes to star power. And you really only have two guys that I think can drive pay-per-view sales, and that's Jon Jones and Tom. And that's even being generous to Tom because I don't think the UFC has taken advantage of what they have with him. And in large part, it feels like he's being disrespected by the UFC. And that's always been a mystery for me because I feel like they have on their hands one of the most exciting heavyweight prospects maybe ever. So between his performances and his personality and social media, Tom has managed to gain a following all on his own. Meanwhile, Jon Jones is barely active at all, and he's given every advantage possible by the UFC and Dana White. And it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that Jon recognizes the threat that Tom poses to him from a matchup perspective, and that's why he's doing everything possible to dismiss Tom and try to get his match with Stipe, win, and leave on top without ever having to face the next big thing. Now, I happen to believe the Stipe fight's going to be a lot harder for Jones than many people are thinking, but I'll save any more on that until that fight's actually booked. But if we assume that Jones is done, win or lose, then that means the only potential star currently at heavyweight is going to be Tom. But it's definitely not going to be Curtis Blaydes, and I don't say that with any ill will towards him at all. Curtis is an incredible fighter, and he can definitely win this fight with Tom. He just doesn't have the presence or the personality or the record that it would take for him to become a star. And that's why I say it's really important for Tom to win this fight so that he can continue to be that driving force in the division that brings in eyeballs and brings in dollars through pay-per-view. Whereas if that gets shut down through a loss to Curtis, then the overall heavyweight division's just going to be a big dud for who knows how long. And that's why I was surprised to hear such a bad take from somebody like Bedtime who really wants Curtis Blaydes to win this fight for whatever reason. So if you care about having hype and excitement around the heavyweights, then you will want Tom to win this fight and to win it convincingly. And if he does that, it will be even easier for people to move on from Jon Jones. So with all that said, how do I see this fight actually breaking down? Well, if you go back and watch the 15 seconds or so of their first fight, Curtis Blaydes was looking very competitive. Tom was looking fast, but so was Curtis. And of the very short exchanges that they had, I felt like Curtis had the better connections. And I also felt like Tom was rushing in and leaving himself open to counters. But from that standpoint, I think that Tom has made a lot of adjustments and improvements to his game. And that's not to say that Curtis hasn't done so as well. But overall, I just feel like Tom has evolved tremendously since their first fight. And I think that his confidence level is also at an all-time high. Although you could say the same for Curtis as well because he was the one who stopped Jailton Almeida. So overall, while I think this is a dangerous fight for Tom, and I have no doubt that he's taking it seriously, I do feel like he should be able to come out and find Curtis's chin with his power and knock him out just like several others have done before him. So my primary thought for the outcome of this fight is Tom by knockout or a TKO. And while this fight going to decision is certainly a possibility as well, I may have to rank Curtis getting an upset and a knockout over Tom, which would shock everybody, right up there with that possibility if Tom takes a reckless approach like he was doing in their first fight. And I think it's important for anybody who's predicting Tom to win this to not overlook what Curtis is capable of. But if Tom is able to pull this off and do it in impressive fashion, then I think the world opens up for him a whole lot more than it has been. First of all, he will have avenged the only loss that he's had in the UFC. and pretty much be back to an unbeaten status, which most people think is the case anyway. So if at that point the UFC does not take advantage of what they have with Tom and start promoting him as the future star of the heavyweight division, then I will really start to feel like the UFC management is starting to lose a step, because that would just be moronic at that point. And as for matchups, if Tom gets past Curtis, I really feel like it has to be something big, and he deserves that. And the only two options that I can really imagine would be the winner of Stipe versus Jon, if either of those guys is willing, which they probably aren't, or the next most obvious choice, which is Alex Pereira. And in every single one of those cases, I would heavily favor Tom, although I really want to see how he looks against Curtis before I go too far down that road. So that's what I have to say on the matter. Let me know down in the comments, what is your opinion of Tom Aspinall? And do you feel like the UFC is shooting themselves in the foot by not better promoting him as the potential future of the division? Also, do you agree with me that Tom should beat Curtis Blaydes? And how do you think he would fare in a future matchup with Jon Jones or Alex Pereira? As always, I'll look forward to reading what you have to say. And once again, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, check out the giveaway details down in the description. And with that out of the way, before I let you go, I want to share something funny that happened while I was making this video. Now, if you're like a lot of people, you might be worried about AI taking your job at some point in the near future. And you would be perfectly reasonable to feel that way because it is sort of scary. But every now and then when I use it, I am reminded that it still has a way to go before it can replace all of us. Now, I almost never use AI-generated images for my thumbnails, mostly because I just find it easier to make them on my own. But this time I did try to use an AI art generator because I wanted a very particular image. And what I had in mind was Tom Aspinall carrying the weight of a large boulder on his back. So I drafted a simple prompt, which you can see on the screen right now. And from that prompt, this is what the art generator gave me back. So yeah, I don't even know what to make of that. It's pretty disturbing and pretty hilarious at the same time. And quite frankly, I don't even know if it's safe to post this on YouTube because what's going on here in this picture? So I guess that the moral of the story is don't worry about your job just yet because there's a lot of work left to be done. And on that note, thank you for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.